When kids are little and they've done something wrong and they're caught red-handed, they almost always profess ignorance. I didn't know. Actually, a lot of adults, mostly defendants I've met up with, say the same thing. Like the driver of the getaway car, loaded with guns, outside the bank, waiting for the bank robbers. I didn't know. This week, excuses keep coming from Washington about the Boston Marathon bombing. And if it weren't so deadly serious and the security of this nation weren't on the line, it would be humorous. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. The Obama administration says it couldn't have done anything differently about the two Tsarnaev brothers, one now facing a charge of using a weapon of mass destruction in the Boston Marathon bombing. And of course, the FBI did everything it could have and should have.
What we do know is that the FBI took action in response to that notification, investigated the elder brother, and investigated thoroughly and came to the conclusion that there was no derogatory information, no indication of terrorist activity or associations, either foreign or domestic, at that time.
Wait a minute. The Russians warned you twice. The Saudis warned you. Your own CIA warned you. And you say there was no indication of terrorist activity? And by the way, why is it that the Russians reportedly had enough information to get a wire on Tamerlan talking to his mother about an attack, and our FBI gives him a clean bill of health? And why is it that we are so clueless about the dangers that these brothers posed? Okay, forget that the other governments told you. Forget that your own CIA told you. Then what about those radical jihadi videos posted by Tamerlan on YouTube? You know, something about this reminds me of Benghazi, when the Brits got out and the Red Cross got out and our people begged for more security and we did nothing. And speaking of Benghazi, take a listen to the president from yesterday.
I think that this is a very difficult challenge when you have individuals who are self-radicalizing. They're not part of some massive conspiracy or network.
Mr. President, how can you be so sure that they're not part of some massive conspiracy or network? Kind of reminds me of that old spontaneous protest about the video. Why are you, Mr. President, so wedded to those narratives? Could it be that if the brothers were self-radicalizing and if the video caused the massacre of 4 Americans in Benghazi, then you could keep spinning that you broke the back of al-Qaeda and that they're on their heels? And oh, I forgot, of course they're on their heels. You killed that old geezer watching those porno films. But you say it like it's a fact. Now, you're convinced that nothing more could have been done.
Well, and the FBI followed up on them. But the FBI can't arrest somebody just based on a rumor. And, you know, that's part of our system of laws.
Of course the FBI followed up. And exactly how was that? They interviewed Tamerlan. He says he's okay. They say he's okay. Let's call it a day. And they say they get thousands of tips. So how could they possibly know which ones were real? I have an idea. How about you isolate the tips that come from foreign governments that have no obligation to tell us anything in the first place, especially the countries that we don't even give money in F-16s to? And what about the fact that Tamerlan shouldn't have been allowed back into this country after 6 months away in his homeland?
Yes, the system pinged when he was leaving the United States. By the time he returned, all investigations the matter had been closed.
And so it didn't ping when he came back. I have an idea. Get a computer that pings. Maybe even get one that certain people can sign on to, like the ones that you guys used as you watched the Benghazi massacre unfold. And how about those 3 college friends of Joe Carr, the cleaners, the ones who destroy evidence, all here on student visas, one of which, like Tamerlan, was let back into the country even though his student visa status had been terminated. And why did that visa expire? Because he was academically terminated, because he was thrown out of school. He didn't come here to learn. And of course, the border agent at the airport says he didn't have access to Homeland Security student exchange information, so he couldn't stop him. You're kidding, right? Does anybody integrate your computer systems? I thought this was all resolved after 9/11. So now one guy comes back in who should have been stopped, but by the time he came back, the matter's closed. Another guy comes back in because they didn't have access to the computer information that would have stopped him. I guess you didn't get that ping either. So I have an idea. Why do we even have student visas? They come here, we give them scholarships, they leave, take all the information, assuming they even came here to learn in the first place, and then they leave. It's called a brain drain. So what do we get out of their coming here anyway? And then, after not listening and not putting two and two together, when you're criticized, you say it's not your fault, like your pal Eric Holder. He says it was the magistrate who decided to Mirandize Joe Carr at the hospital bedside.
The magistrate did the appropriate thing. The magistrate followed the law. We did not immunize. We didn't give anybody Miranda.
Really? This is the most important terrorist case we've got. Who filed the charges? Who assigned the assistant U.S. attorney to handle this? Who told the assistant U.S. attorney to go to the hospital? Who arranged for security at the hospital? Is it just me, or have I seen this one before?
Ooh, I love to dance a little sidestep. Now they see me, now they know that I'm gone and
But I guess in the end, we'll do one of those lessons learned, like the lessons from the Benghazi Accountability Review Board, which came up with pretty much the same conclusions that the 1999 Accountability Review Board came up with after the brutal bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. And we'll just keep working on fixing those problems, or saying we didn't know. With me now, American Center for Law and Justice Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow from Nashville and former federal prosecutor David Raskin, who is with me in New York. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Jay, why is the president so insistent on saying that these were lone wolves and self-radicalized?
Exactly what you said, and that is it's not fitting the president's narrative. And, you know, this whole self-radicalized idea, you know, what's the difference between learning about radical jihadism from an imam in a mosque and learning it over from an imam on the internet? That's not self-radicalized. It's, again, this is coordinated. So it's not fitting the narrative. That's number one. And number two, it's the terminology used here. How can they be a lone wolf? First of all, we know there was two. Now we've got three more. So these are not lone wolves. This was someone organized this, someone paid for this. And someone arranged for it to happen. And it could be the two brothers and then the three accomplices that try to hide the weapons that were utilized after the fact. Or were they part of it before? We'll find out, I guess, unless they've already Mirandized them, which I'm sure they have, so they'll not be talking. But I think it's just not fitting the narrative, Judge. That's what you said is right. It's not fitting the narrative. But this whole self-radicalized idea, we got to get off this. There's technology now, and we need to know about it.
All right. And David Raskin, you tried the Zacharias Moussaoui case, and that was a case that involved one of the planners of the 9/11 attack. And so you're very familiar with this. I mean, does it make a difference to you whether or not they were self-radicalized or whether Tamerlan went back and was trained in his homeland of Dagestan?
Well, of course it matters in terms of national security. In terms of the prosecution itself, the elements of the offense don't require that somebody be radicalized in the United States or abroad. So if you're talking about a prosecution, it doesn't make a difference. In terms of protecting the homeland,
right.
Obviously it makes a huge difference.
All right. And when Eric Holder, we just saw it, said that, you know, it was the magistrate who gave him his rights. Well, you and I both know, of course, it's a judge who gives him the right to remain silent. But you know that there are some of these terrorists that we have held in custody for longer than 48 hours before we charge them and give them Miranda rights. Could this case have been, you know, held a little longer before he was arraigned?
Well, in the cases you're talking about, it is usually because the defendant, for one reason or another, has decided to waive a speedy presentment. He has a right to go to court, usually within 24 to 48 hours. In this case, it's unclear whether anybody was going to waive or not. There was obviously...
But do you agree that the FBI didn't have enough time, knowing what you know, to get the information they would need in a case of this magnitude?
Well, obviously, you always want as much time as you can get. It's completely unclear exactly how much these guys know, other than what they planned.
Well, that's because we didn't give them a chance to tell us. But anyway, Jay, I'm going to go back to you. Look, we've got these three guys. His college buddies, and people are saying, well, they're just kids, they're just from college, not really a big deal.
Well, people are acting like this is, they uncovered a cheating scandal on the campus. But this is no different than someone finding the murder weapon that a buddy of theirs utilized to kill people and then hiding that evidence. And here they did exactly the same thing, except it was with a weapon of mass destruction and killed multiple people and injured hundreds. And the fact of the matter is, we've got to get to the bottom of it. And something else that's troubled me from the beginning of this case. You remember when the FBI and the police came on and they showed the picture of the two suspects and they said, hey, we need your help, the American people, in identifying who they are.
Jay,
some of you know who these people are.
I agree.
Well,
the FBI already interviewed them. How did they not know who they were?
Why did they say, yeah, that's the guy we interviewed 18 months ago?
Hello. Listen, David,
thing,
very
Judge,
quickly. Sorry, Jay, I want to get to David on this.
No, go
These three guys, the college roommates. I mean, what would you? I know what they're charged with, but they'll go to jail, I assume.
They're going to go to jail, and they're going to go to jail for a very long time. This is a very, very serious crime. It's the most important investigation in the country, and these kids started to take evidence and destroy it.
Yep.
It doesn't get any more serious than that.
I agree.
And they have only been charged in a complaint. There are going to be additional charges filed, perhaps more serious ones.
David Raskin, thanks so much for being with us, and Jay Sekulow. And now, guys, to our Insta poll question. We want to know, what punishment should the college friends of the Boston bombing suspect Joe Tsarnaev get for their role in disposing of the evidence? Let me know on Facebook or Twitter at Judge Janine. And up